The beginning of part 1 is ready below in a dramatic, emotional style suitable for a God message video script. God's message scripts work best with strong pacing, emotional pauses, and prophetic imagery. Since you requested around 15,000 words for part 1, this opening section establishes the tone and momentum for the full continuation. Your name was called out in heaven for. You were not here by accident. This message did not appear before your eyes by coincidence. At this very moment, while you are reading these words, something is shifting in the spiritual realm around your life. Heaven has been speaking about you. Angels have been assigned concerning you. And the reason your spirit feels restless lately is because your name was called out in heaven for a divine purpose that can no longer be delayed. God says, "My child, I have watched every tear you tried to hide from the world. I have seen the silent battles you fought alone at night. I know the pain you never explained to anyone. I heard the prayers you whispered when nobody else believed in you. And now the time has come for me to answer. There are people around you who think your story is over. Some assumed you would never recover. Some secretly celebrated your struggles. Some walked away because they thought you had nothing left to offer. But God says, they judged you too early. Because heaven has not abandoned you. In fact, your name was mentioned before the throne of grace. The moment your heart almost gave up, God began preparing a miracle behind the scenes. Listen carefully. The enemy thought isolation would break you. The enemy thought disappointment would silence you. The enemy thought delay meant defeat. But God says, what looked like delay was divine preparation. You have entered a season where hidden doors are about to open unexpectedly. The pain you experienced was not meaningless. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every delay built endurance. Every rejection redirected you toward your true assignment. And now heaven is announcing your transition. There are blessings approaching your life that you did not earn through human strength. God Himself is stepping into your situation. What people called impossible will suddenly begin moving in your favor. God says, I am restoring what was stolen from you. For some of you reading this, the past few months have felt extremely heavy. You smiled in front of others while carrying storms inside your heart. There were moments when you questioned your future. You asked God silently, why is everything taking so long? But heaven heard every word. And this is what God wants you to understand today. The spiritual pressure around your life increased because your breakthrough is close. The enemy attacks hardest when destiny is near. That is why confusion surrounded your mind. That is why certain relationships suddenly collapsed. That is why unexpected problems kept appearing one after another. It was not random. There is something valuable inside you that hell recognizes even when people do not. God says, you carry an assignment that will impact others. You thought your life was ordinary. You thought your prayers were unnoticed. You thought your struggles made you weak. But heaven sees a future version of you that the enemy fears deeply. This is why you survived situations that should have destroyed you. This is why you kept getting back up after emotional pain. This is why something inside you refuses to completely give up. Because God's hand has remained over your life even during your darkest seasons. Right now, somebody reading this has been crying secretly about finances. Another person has been carrying fear about their family. Someone else feels exhausted from waiting for change. And God says, I have not forgotten you. Your name was called out in heaven because a shift is coming. Not someday. Not years from now. Soon. Very soon. There are conversations happening spiritually that you cannot yet see. Doors are moving. Chains are breaking. Divine connections are being arranged. What looked frozen is beginning to move again. God says, the season of surviving is ending. The season of restoration is beginning. But you must prepare yourself emotionally and spiritually, because the next chapter of your life will require faith greater than fear. Some blessings will arrive suddenly. Some people will leave unexpectedly. Some opportunities will appear without warning. Do not panic when old things begin falling apart. Sometimes God removes what cannot follow you into your next season. There are toxic attachments you prayed to keep while heaven was trying to protect you from destruction. There were closed doors you cried over that were actually acts of mercy. God says, if I removed it, I had a reason. The pain of separation was temporary, but the protection behind it was eternal. Now listen closely because this part is important. There is a spiritual battle happening over your focus. The enemy wants you distracted, discouraged, emotionally drained, and spiritually asleep before your breakthrough arrives. Why? Because once you fully recognize who God created you to become, your life will never remain the same again. The enemy is terrified of your awakening. He is terrified that you might finally believe God's promises. He is terrified that you might stop doubting yourself. He is terrified that your faith could grow stronger than your fear. God says, my child, stop speaking defeat over your future. What you repeatedly say about your life matters more than you realize. Heaven responds to faith-filled words. You cannot continuously declare hopelessness while expecting victory. Your current situation is not your final destination. Read that again. Your current pain is not permanent. Your present struggle is not the end of your story. The disappointment you experienced is not greater than God's power. Because the same God who opened seas, healed the broken, restored the lost, and raised the fallen, is still working today. And He is working in your life right now. There are people who will soon witness your transformation and not understand how you recovered so quickly. They will remember your weakness, but they will not understand the strength God placed inside you afterward. God says, I will use your story as proof that I still perform miracles. The nights you cried alone were not wasted. The prayers you thought went unanswered were being stored for the right moment. The waiting season was building spiritual maturity inside you. You are stronger now than before. Wiser now than before. Closer to God now than before. And heaven is preparing to reward your endurance. Something unusual is approaching your life. Unexpected favor. Unexpected peace. Unexpected opportunities. Unexpected healing. God says, what is coming will surprise you. But before the blessing arrives fully, there is something you must release. Release bitterness. Release resentment. Release the need for revenge. Release the fear of failure. Because the weight of yesterday cannot enter the future God prepared for you. Some people hurt you deeply. Some betrayed your trust unfairly. Some abandoned you when you needed them most. But God says, do not let their actions poison your destiny. If you continue carrying anger, you will delay your own healing. Forgiveness does not excuse what happened. It frees your spirit from remaining chained to the pain. And heaven wants you free. Free from fear. Free from shame. Free from guilt. Free from spiritual exhaustion. Because your assignment is bigger than your suffering. Right now, as you are hearing these words, God is calling you into deeper faith. Not shallow faith that disappears during difficulty, but powerful faith that stands firm even during storms. The next season of your life will require courage. There will be moments when logic says quit, but faith says continue. Moments when people misunderstand you. Moments when doors close unexpectedly. Moments when you feel stretched beyond comfort. But God says, do not fear the stretching. Growth requires it. The version of you that heaven sees is far greater than the version you currently believe yourself to be. And this is only the beginning. Part 2 will continue with the deeper prophecy, the warning God wants you to hear immediately, and the powerful sign that confirms heaven is moving in your favor right now. Part 2 continues below in the same emotional and prophetic storytelling style. The moment heaven called your name, something began changing around you that you could not immediately see. God says, my child, while you were worrying, I was already working. There were nights when you thought nothing was happening. Days when you felt invisible. Moments when silence made you question whether God still heard your prayers. But heaven was never silent. Behind every closed door, God was arranging divine timing. Behind every delay, He was protecting you from something you did not understand. Behind every painful ending, He was creating room for a new beginning that would eventually heal what broke inside you. You must understand this carefully. Not every loss was punishment. Some losses were rescue missions. There were people who smiled in your face while secretly draining your spirit. Some relationships were built on manipulation, jealousy, and hidden agendas. You kept trying to save connections that heaven already marked for removal. God says, I separated you from certain people because they could not go where I am taking you. You cried over their absence. You replayed conversations repeatedly in your mind. You wondered whether you failed them somehow. But God wants you to know today. The separation protected your destiny. Sometimes God allows isolation because He needs your attention undivided. When too many voices surround you, it becomes difficult to hear heaven clearly. And lately, God has been trying to speak to your spirit. Have you noticed the strange feeling inside you recently? The feeling that something important is approaching? The feeling that your life is standing near a major turning point? That is not your imagination. Heaven is preparing movement. God says, the season ahead will not look like the season behind you. The old cycle is ending. For too long, you carried exhaustion that nobody understood. You kept fighting battles silently. You encouraged others while secretly feeling empty yourself. But God says, I am about to refresh your spirit. There are blessings coming that will not make sense to people around you. Some opportunities will appear suddenly. Some doors will open without explanation. Some prayers will be answered faster than you expected. And when it happens, remember this: it was not luck. It was divine timing. Somebody reading this has been struggling financially. You have worried about bills. You have stressed over responsibilities. You have wondered how things will improve. God says, I am your provider even in difficult seasons. Do not measure your future based on your current limitations. Heaven has resources beyond human understanding. What feels impossible to you is still easy for God. But there is also a warning connected to this blessing. God says, do not allow fear to sabotage what I am sending. Many people pray for change, but panic when change actually begins happening. They ask God for transformation, then become afraid when old patterns start breaking apart. You cannot enter a new season while thinking like the old version of yourself. The person you were during pain cannot remain the same person during elevation. God says, you must stop speaking negatively over your own future. Every time you call yourself worthless, defeated, forgotten, or hopeless, you strengthen emotional chains around your spirit. The enemy wants your mouth to agree with fear. But heaven is calling you to speak differently. Instead of saying, nothing will ever change, say, God is making a way for me. Instead of saying, I always fail, say, God is strengthening me through every challenge. Instead of saying, I am abandoned, say, God is still with me. Your words carry spiritual weight. And heaven wants your faith stronger than your doubt. There is another thing God wants you to hear very carefully tonight. Some of the attacks against your life were not random accidents. The enemy recognized your potential before you recognized it yourself. That is why confusion entered your thoughts. That is why discouragement attacked your confidence. That is why certain people suddenly turned against you without explanation. The enemy hoped emotional exhaustion would stop your progress before your breakthrough arrived. But you survived. You are still here. And that frustrates darkness more than you realize. God says, the fact that you survived proves I still have purpose for your life. Somebody reading this almost gave up recently. You smiled outwardly while internally feeling broken. You carried emotional wounds nobody else fully understood. There were moments you questioned your own value. Moments you wondered whether your life truly mattered. But hear this clearly. Your existence is not meaningless. Heaven does not create people without purpose. Every breath in your body still carries assignment. Every day you remain alive means your story is not finished. God says, you are entering a season where your pain will produce purpose. The tears you cried will help you understand others more deeply. The rejection you experienced will build wisdom inside you. The hardships you survived will become testimony later. One day people will hear your story and regain hope because you endured what tried to destroy you. Nothing you suffered was wasted. Even now, heaven is using your difficult season to prepare spiritual strength inside you. You may not fully understand it yet, but you are developing resilience that will be necessary for where God is leading you next. And where God is leading you requires maturity. Because the blessing coming into your life is larger than temporary emotions. God says, I am preparing you for responsibility, not just reward. Some people only want miracles, but they do not want transformation. They want God to change circumstances without changing their mindset. But heaven is working on both. God is not only changing your situation, He is changing you. Your thinking is evolving. Your discernment is increasing. Your spirit is becoming more sensitive to truth. You are beginning to notice things differently now. Conversations feel different. Certain environments suddenly feel heavy. Some people no longer feel safe around your spirit. That is because spiritual growth changes what you tolerate. God says, you are outgrowing what once distracted you. Do not feel guilty for changing. Growth often requires separation. Not everyone assigned to your past is assigned to your future. Some people were only temporary chapters in your journey. If God removes them, trust His wisdom even when your emotions struggle to understand. Because heaven sees what human eyes cannot. There are hidden dangers God already protected you from. Hidden betrayals He blocked. Hidden traps He prevented from reaching your life. If God revealed everything He saved you from, you would realize how protected you truly are. Even during moments you felt abandoned, heaven was standing guard around you. God says, my angels have watched over you more times than you know. There were accidents that could have happened but did not. Situations that almost destroyed you but failed. Moments where danger came close, yet God covered you anyway. You are not surviving by coincidence. You are being preserved for purpose. And now heaven is calling you higher. This next season will require spiritual discipline. You cannot continue feeding your mind with constant negativity while expecting peace. You cannot surround yourself with toxic voices while expecting clarity. God says, protect your spirit carefully. Not every voice deserves access to your heart. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every invitation deserves your energy. Discernment will become extremely important where God is taking you. Because as blessings increase, distractions also increase. The enemy does not always attack through obvious destruction. Sometimes he attacks through distraction, confusion, temptation, and emotional chaos. That is why you must stay spiritually alert. Pray even when you feel tired. Trust even when you do not fully understand. Continue moving even when progress feels slow. Because heaven is closer than you think. God says, what I promised you will still happen. Read that again slowly. What God promised will still happen. The delay did not cancel it. The betrayal did not cancel it. Your mistakes did not cancel it. The enemy's attacks did not cancel it. If heaven spoke it over your life, no darkness can permanently stop it. There is power being released over your future even now. A shift in relationships. A shift in opportunities. A shift in emotional healing. A shift in spiritual clarity. Things are beginning to move. Somebody reading this will soon receive unexpected news that changes everything. Another person will finally experience relief after months of stress. Someone else will see restoration where they assumed permanent loss existed. God says, I am still the God of sudden miracles. Do not lose hope at the edge of breakthrough. The enemy wants you exhausted right before the answer arrives. He wants discouragement to make you quit during the final stage of preparation. But heaven says, stand firm a little longer. Your story is changing. The chapter of pain is not the final chapter. The season of confusion is not permanent. The nights of crying will not last forever. Joy is still coming. Healing is still coming. Restoration is still coming. And when it arrives, you will finally understand why God allowed certain battles to happen the way they did. Because the version of you emerging from this season is stronger, wiser, more faithful, and more spiritually prepared than before. God says, you are not being destroyed. You are being rebuilt. And what heaven builds, no darkness can permanently break. Part 3 will continue with the powerful warning, the hidden attack God wants you to recognize immediately, and the life-changing breakthrough heaven says is approaching faster than you expect. Part 3 continues below in the same powerful prophetic and emotional style. God says, my child, pay attention carefully because the next season of your life will determine more than you realize. There are moments in destiny where everything begins shifting at once. Doors open suddenly. Truth becomes clearer. Hidden things rise to the surface. Relationships change. Priorities change. Even your spirit begins craving different things. And you are standing near one of those moments now. Heaven has been watching your struggles silently for a long time. God saw the nights you felt emotionally exhausted. The mornings you forced yourself to keep going. The hidden disappointments you never explained to anyone. People saw your smile. But heaven saw the pressure behind it. God says, I know how tired you have become. Some days you felt strong. Other days you barely had enough energy to continue. There were moments you questioned whether your prayers were reaching heaven at all. But every prayer reached God. Every tear was recorded. Every cry from your heart was heard. Nothing about your pain escaped heaven's attention. And now something significant is beginning to happen spiritually around your life. The chains that held you emotionally are weakening. The confusion that clouded your thinking is breaking. The heaviness surrounding your spirit is starting to lift. God says, you are coming out of survival mode. For too long you lived under pressure. Pressure to please others. Pressure to stay strong constantly. Pressure to carry responsibilities nobody helped you with. And while everyone expected strength from you, almost nobody asked whether you were okay. But God noticed. Heaven noticed. And God says, I am about to carry what has been crushing you. Somebody reading this has been silently battling anxiety about the future. You worry constantly about things working out. Your mind races at night. Fear keeps whispering worst-case scenarios into your thoughts. But God says, fear is not your future. The enemy has been trying to trap your mind in cycles of worry because he knows fear weakens faith. If he cannot destroy your destiny directly, he will try to exhaust your emotions until you stop believing anything good can happen. That is why your thoughts have felt attacked lately. That is why discouragement keeps appearing unexpectedly. That is why hopelessness tries to settle over your spirit. This battle is spiritual. But heaven is stronger. God says, "The darkness surrounding you cannot stop the light I placed within you." There is a reason you survived everything that tried to break you. You survived betrayal. You survived heartbreak. You survived disappointment. You survived seasons where almost nobody understood your pain. And even now, despite everything you faced, something inside you still hopes. That hope is not accidental. It is heaven's reminder that your story is not finished yet. God says, "You are closer to breakthrough than you realize." The enemy wants you focused on what has not happened yet. Heaven wants you focused on what is already shifting behind the scenes. Because while you were worrying, God was arranging. While you were crying, God was preparing. While you were waiting, God was moving pieces into place that you cannot fully see yet. There are people about to enter your life who will help restore what previous relationships damaged. There are opportunities coming that will remind you your life still carries purpose. And there are blessings approaching you that were delayed, but never denied. God says, "What belongs to you will find you." You do not need to chase everything desperately. You do not need to destroy yourself trying to force open doors God never assigned to you. When heaven ordains something for your life, it will arrive at the proper time. But there is also something God needs you to release immediately. Release comparison. Comparison has been stealing your peace quietly. You look at other people and wonder why their lives appear easier. You compare your progress to theirs. You question why your journey feels slower or more painful. But God says, "You do not know the full story behind what you envy." Some people appear successful publicly while suffering privately. Some people look peaceful externally while fighting internal chaos. Do not measure your destiny against someone else's timeline. Your assignment is unique. Your process is unique. Your preparation is unique. God is writing your story differently for a reason. And what heaven is building inside you requires deeper preparation than you currently understand. God says, "The waiting season was building endurance." Without the delay, you would not have developed wisdom. Without the struggle, you would not recognize true peace. Without the pain, you would not appreciate healing properly. The process changed you. And although the process hurt, it also strengthened you. You are not the same person you used to be. Certain things no longer entertain you. Certain conversations now drain you. Certain environments make your spirit uncomfortable. That is growth. God says, "I am teaching you discernment." Discernment will protect your future. Not every smiling face carries good intentions. Not every opportunity is a blessing. Not every open door comes from heaven. Some distractions arrive disguised as answers to prayer. That is why spiritual sensitivity matters now more than ever. God says, "Stay close to me in this season." The enemy knows your breakthrough is near, which is why spiritual attacks increased recently. Confusion intensified. Emotional exhaustion deepened. Unexpected problems appeared suddenly. The enemy hoped pressure would cause you to abandon faith before your miracle arrived. But heaven says, you are still standing. And your survival already proves God's hand remains over your life. There were moments darkness whispered, give up. Nothing will change. You will always struggle. But you kept moving anyway. Even wounded. You kept going. Even disappointed. You kept praying. Even exhausted. You survived. And God says, that perseverance will be rewarded. Something unusual is approaching your life. A sudden shift. A divine connection. A financial opportunity. An emotional healing. A restoration you stopped expecting. God says, I am about to surprise you. Not because you earned perfection. Not because you never struggled. But because God's mercy is still over your life. Heaven has not disqualified you because of your mistakes. Somebody reading this still carries guilt from the past. You replay old failures repeatedly in your mind. Shame keeps reminding you of things you wish you could undo. But God says, stop punishing yourself for what I already forgave. The enemy wants your past louder than your future. He wants regret stronger than faith. But heaven is calling you forward, not backward. Your mistakes were chapters. They were not your identity. God says, I still have plans for your life. Do not allow shame to convince you that you are beyond restoration. God specializes in rebuilding broken people. Throughout history, heaven repeatedly used imperfect individuals to accomplish extraordinary things. And God can still use you too. Right now, many people around you only see your current condition. They do not see the transformation God is preparing internally. They judge based on appearances while heaven sees destiny. But soon, the evidence of God's hand over your life will become undeniable. People who doubted you will be shocked by your growth. People who underestimated you will not understand your transformation. People who left your life will realize they walked away from someone heaven was rebuilding. God says, the version of you emerging now is stronger than before. This next chapter will require confidence rooted in God, not in human approval. Stop begging people to recognize your value. Stop shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable. Stop doubting what heaven already confirmed inside your spirit. You were not created to remain trapped in fear forever. God says, I called your name because you still have purpose. Even after the heartbreak. Even after the disappointments. Even after the battles that nearly destroyed your confidence. Purpose still remains. There are lives your story will impact one day. There are people your survival will inspire. There are doors your testimony will open. Nothing you endured was meaningless. God says, the pain produced preparation. And preparation always comes before elevation. But listen carefully because this warning matters deeply. Do not return to environments God rescued you from. Sometimes loneliness tempts people to reconnect with what once damaged them. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar growth. But heaven says, do not rebuild what I removed. Some doors closed permanently for your protection. Some relationships ended because they were draining your spirit. Some losses were necessary to preserve your future. Trust God's removals even when emotions struggle to understand them. Because heaven sees dangers hidden behind appearances. And now God is bringing you toward a season of clarity. The confusion will not last forever. The heaviness will not last forever. The waiting will not last forever. God says, the answer is closer than you think. Something is already moving. A breakthrough is forming. Healing is forming. Restoration is forming. Direction is forming. The very thing you cried about may soon become the testimony that strengthens others. One day you will look back at this painful season and realize heaven was carrying you even when you felt alone. God says, I never abandoned you. Not during the sleepless nights. Not during the financial stress. Not during the heartbreak. Not during the moments you nearly gave up. Heaven remained near. And now your season is beginning to change. The spiritual storms surrounding your life will not continue forever. Peace is coming. Clarity is coming. Strength is coming. God says, you will smile again genuinely. Not fake smiles to hide pain. Not forced smiles to survive difficult days. Real joy. The kind of joy that returns after deep healing. The kind of peace that follows spiritual breakthrough. The kind of strength that only comes after surviving what should have destroyed you. And when that day fully arrives, you will understand why heaven called your name. Because your story was never ordinary. Your survival was never accidental. And your future is far greater than the enemy wanted you to believe. Part 4 continues below in the same deep prophetic and emotional tone. God says, my child, the battle around your life is changing now. For a long time, you have felt like you were constantly fighting invisible pressure. Every time you tried to move forward, something seemed to push against you. Delays increased. Stress increased. Emotional exhaustion increased. And there were moments you secretly asked, God, why is everything so difficult? But heaven says, you were never fighting alone. Even during the moments when your faith felt weak, God stayed beside you. Even when your prayers became quiet whispers, heaven still listened. Even when tears fell silently at night, God remained near. You must understand something important now. The enemy attacked your peace because he feared your future. There is something inside you that darkness recognizes. There is purpose attached to your life that heaven refuses to abandon. And although the enemy tried to bury your confidence under disappointment, God continued protecting the calling placed over you. That is why you survived seasons that should have broken you completely. God says, my hand remained over your life. You thought you were forgotten. But heaven was preserving you. You thought the silence meant abandonment. But heaven was preparing timing. You thought the delay meant denial. But heaven was building the right foundation first. Some blessings cannot arrive until your spirit becomes strong enough to carry them. And lately, God has been strengthening you through pressure. Not to destroy you. To prepare you. Every difficult moment taught you something. Every betrayal sharpened discernment. Every painful goodbye forced growth. Every lonely season pushed you closer toward God. Nothing was wasted. God says, I will use every painful chapter for your good. Even the mistakes. Even the regrets. Even the seasons you wish never happened. Heaven can still transform broken pieces into purpose. Right now, many people only see your struggle. They see the external battle, but they do not understand the spiritual transformation happening within you. They do not see the strength God is quietly building inside your spirit. But soon, the evidence will become visible. God says, the same people who underestimated you will witness your restoration. There are individuals who assumed you would never recover emotionally. People who believed your best days were behind you. People who spoke negatively about your future. But heaven already decided your story differently. And no human opinion can cancel what God has spoken over your life. This next season will surprise people. Doors will open unexpectedly. Favor will appear unexpectedly. Peace will return unexpectedly. And the people who doubted your future will not understand how quickly things changed. Because when heaven moves, everything can change suddenly. God says, do not lose hope during the final stage of waiting. The enemy often increases pressure right before breakthrough. He hopes exhaustion will convince you to quit before the answer arrives. That is why your emotions have felt stretched lately. But heaven says, hold on a little longer. Something is shifting already. A burden is lifting from your spirit. A cycle is ending. A new beginning is forming quietly behind the scenes. And God wants you to prepare emotionally for what is coming next. Because the next chapter of your life will require courage. Some opportunities will feel bigger than your comfort zone. Some blessings will arrive faster than expected. Some changes will require faith instead of fear. Do not run from the very thing you prayed for. God says, you asked me for growth, and growth requires movement. You cannot remain trapped in old thinking while expecting a new future. Heaven is calling you higher now. Higher in faith. Higher in wisdom. Higher in spiritual maturity. That means some habits must end. Some toxic connections must end. Some fearful mindsets must end. God says, the old version of you cannot enter the next season. You are evolving spiritually. Things that once distracted you no longer satisfy you. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Certain environments now disturb your spirit instead of comforting it. That is not weakness. That is transformation. Heaven is teaching you discernment. And discernment will protect your destiny. Not everyone celebrating around you truly supports you. Not every invitation is aligned with your purpose. Not every opportunity comes from God. This is why prayer matters now more than ever. God says, stay spiritually alert. Because the enemy no longer wants only to discourage you. Now he wants to distract you. Distraction is dangerous because it slowly steals focus from purpose. The enemy knows he cannot completely stop what heaven ordained, so he tries to delay it through confusion, emotional chaos, temptation, and fear. But God says, you will not be defeated. Read that again. You will not be defeated. The pressure did not destroy you. The heartbreak did not destroy you. The disappointment did not destroy you. And this current battle will not destroy you either. Because heaven is still fighting for you. Somebody reading this needs to hear this clearly tonight. Stop doubting your worth. You have spent too much time believing negative voices. Too much time replaying criticism. Too much time questioning your own value. But God says, you are deeply loved by heaven. Your existence matters. Your life carries meaning. Your future still carries promise. Even if people rejected you, God still chose you. Even if others walked away, heaven still remains beside you. Even if your journey became painful, purpose still exists within you. And now God is calling you into deeper trust. Trust when answers are delayed. Trust when emotions feel unstable. Trust when circumstances make no sense. Because heaven sees what you cannot yet see. There are things moving in your favor already. Prayers being answered already. Doors being prepared already. God says, what I promised will arrive at the appointed time. Do not let impatience create unnecessary fear. Sometimes heaven delays blessings because timing matters. Certain things must happen in the correct order. Certain people must move first. Certain lessons must develop first. If God gave you everything immediately, some blessings would destroy you instead of helping you. But heaven understands perfect timing. And God says, when the moment is right, nothing will stop what I release into your life. Not fear. Not opposition. Not human resistance. Not spiritual attacks. What heaven ordains cannot be permanently blocked. That is why the enemy has fought your spirit so intensely lately. Darkness recognizes movement before you fully see it yourself. But God says, the breakthrough is still coming. You will not remain in survival mode forever. You will not cry forever. You will not struggle forever. Healing is coming. Direction is coming. Restoration is coming. And one day soon, you will look back at this painful season with different eyes. You will realize God was protecting you during the delays, strengthening you during the pressure, preparing you during the waiting. Nothing was random. Every battle carried purpose. Every delay carried preparation. Every painful moment carried hidden lessons. And now heaven is preparing to reward your endurance. God says, your story is about to change. Not because people suddenly became kinder. Not because life suddenly became easier. But because God Himself is stepping into your situation. The same God who carried you through every dark night will also lead you into the morning. The same God who heard your cries will also answer them. The same God who protected you during hidden battles will also bless you openly. And when that season fully arrives, your testimony will remind others that heaven never abandons those who continue trusting through the storm. Because your name was not called in heaven for destruction. Your name was called for purpose, for restoration, for breakthrough, and for the future God already prepared ahead of you.